that is ultimate, an end. For example, that if you want to go to continue to be part of the U.S., what will be the end status to be a state, right?
Not necessarily.
For integration, and that's what they call it, for integration. But that's if you loosely translate that, it means statehood, And if you were to go to the other options, for example, for independence, that is again an ultimate status to be independent, to be on your own. And by the same token, the United Nations, I think, is viewing that independence with free association, what they did or accepted for the British state of Micronesia, that will be another, but a hybrid, So like you said, yeah, it's always been my understanding that free association actually is independent in itself. And I like to use the word, but at least a back door open to negotiate with them, but somebody to come in.
Well, in answer to your question, back in the 80s, the population of Guam was close to 110, 115,000. 2 generations have been born on Guam since the 80s. So right now, 62% of the island's population is under 45. 38% of the population is above 45. But when it comes time to vote, 68% of the people that vote are over 45, and only 38% of the people who vote are under 45. And you can get those statistics. I got them from the e-car out of GEC. What we're dealing with is a different Guam than 1980. In 1980, computers didn't exist, modems didn't exist, the wireless, internet, cell phones. It was a 7.5-hour plane flight to Hawaii. The world has changed. We have to deal with the Guam we live in today, not the Guam of 40 years ago. The Guam we live in today is a much more connected place than it used to be. It's a lot less isolated than it was in 1980, because in 1980 we had 2 carriers, Micronesian, Air Pacific, and Pan Am. Both of those companies are gone. So what we have to recognize is that when 62% of the people are too young to remember or weren't even born when those commonwealths were held, we need to start the effort over again. And like you said, there were 5 options then. Now we only have 3. And the people that vote don't like the 3 that are being presented because they are feeling cut out of the process. I know that the task force have been doing a great job educating, but they haven't had time and they haven't had the resources they need to do a much better education. I use myself as an example. Until I met with Victoria there was a lot I didn't know about the independence effort until she clued me in and provided me with materials, which I am in the process of reading. This is a life-changing decision for everybody from this day forward. We can't just rush into it. We need to make sure that we get the majority of the people on board for whatever decision we make. And that's why I request that the status quo be set up, so that we provide that sense of balance, and that more effort be made on education. The task force need to have more bandwidth. This is not an easy process. We are talking about changing a paradigm that people are locked into. But in order to change it, the only way to change it is education. That's why we keep talking about education being the silver bullet. We need more silver bullets, because this is a huge decision that we are laying before the people of Guam. And we can't lay it just before a few. It has to be laid before all. That's where we get credibility with the U.S. Congress that will ultimately decide what our political status is, but we have to do it with credibility. Right now, we go to the U.S. Congress, we say, hey, we pissed away $2 million in a battle that violates everything you stand for. What kind of credibility do we have when we go to Congress and try to do it again? But if we go to Congress a few years from now, after a very robust education effort that gets more and more of the community involved, because I can't do it by myself, these task force people can't do it by themselves, it's going to take a Herculean effort to educate the number of people that need to have education, be educated to the point where they are confident in a decision that they are going to make that's going to affect Chamorros, Guamanians for the next 1,000 years. We're not talking about, an election where if we don't like it in 2 years, we can redo it. If we do this, this is not a 2-year and a do-over. This is going to be forever. That's why we have to make haste slowly. But we have to make haste, and we have to do it with great effort, resources, and education. Because this is an important decision. But right now, we've got what? We're going to try to spend $300,000 over the past 10 years? That's not enough to create the type of an education program necessary so that everybody on Guam will have access or have had the opportunity or will know what the options are and what the ramifications are of each option. Because right now, when I talk to people, they're under the mistaken idea that we're going to charge the military $10 billion for Anderson and Naval Station. Castro has been trying to kick the U.S. off Guantanamo ever since '56. How's that working for him? So what we need to look at is we have to deal with reality. The reality is that some way, somehow, this organization has to establish validity and credibility, change the law so that it is not challengeable, and then begin moving forward with adequate funding for all efforts. And only then can we have a credible vote and a petition that we take before Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Leon-Guerrero. Mr. Director, if there are no objections, I'd like to go ahead and recognize Mr. Hempsey. Mr. No? Anything?
I'm going to speak after you.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm going to speak after him.
Mr. Manazan, Aku. Mr. Manazan, si Ken.
Mr. Malazan,
Ah,
I was just waiting on you.
Okay. Sorry.
Off a day. I'm going to